good. Well, now he's got a new partner, Hugo Chavez, and details are right around the corner. But first, it's time for the real story, where we try to cut through the media spin and tell you why a story is actually important to you. Tragically, suicide bombings are all too common in other parts of the world, but it has not been a reality that we have to face here in the United States yet. The real story is that could be changing. According to a new national survey of Muslims living here in the U.S. by Pew Research Center for the People and the Press, nearly 25% of Muslims, 25 under 30, found suicide bombings to defend their religion as acceptable in some circumstances. This kind of thinking is terrifying, it is dangerous, but it is sadly predictable. The poll tells you the same thing I've been saying since 9/11. The vast majority of Muslims are good people who want to live here in peace. The survey shows that about 13% of Muslims worldwide harbor dangerous extremist beliefs. I've been saying the number is 10%. Forgive me, my gut instincts have a 3% margin of error. Unless we wise up and nip the extremist dissent in the butt, what is happening in England and what is happening in Europe is going to happen here. The Brits didn't believe they had a homegrown terrorist problem until a bomb went off in their subways in 2005. Do we really want to sit around and wait and learn the hard way? Zuhdi Jasser, he's from the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, contributor to the program. Zuhdi, first off the bat, you surprised by this poll?
No, I'm not. You know, it's interesting that we're still doing polls trying to diagnose the problem, and we know the problem. The issue is those 80% that you talked about that are peace-loving and fighting and believe in condemning terrorism, the poll did nothing to find out what they're doing to contribute to the problem, and that they are not working in an anti-Islamist fashion. They may condemn the means, but have they condemned the ends? We tried to have a rally against terrorism here in Phoenix in April of '04. Not one imam would have the moral courage to stand with us and condemn terrorism. Why? Because they wanted to focus on denial, apologetics, blaming the West, blaming foreign policy. So when you see these numbers increasing, which I believe they are, it's because we don't have the moral courage within the Muslim community to stand up against the Islamists.
Zuhdi, I can't tell you how much grief I get. I've been called, and I know you're on this bandwagon too, I've been called the, the biggest threat to Islam in America, something like that. I've been saying that 90% of Islam is good. What is it that has to happen before Muslims, the good Muslims, stand up and say, hey, freak boy, sit down, stop bastardizing my religion?
Exactly. It's basically the shedding of tribalism. It's the stop defending our minority for no reason other than to just avoid the reality of the fact that there is an endemic corruption that has basically said that the ends justifies the means. I mean, in this same poll you cite, they say that only 40% of those same Muslims believe that Arabs actually did 9/11. So hold on a second. They are basically in such a denial that they don't even want to diagnose the problem in the Muslim community, let alone stand up and say that our Quran does not justify it. No matter how much our plight is, we would never justify the targeting of non-combatants.
Why the disconnect? Why the disconnect with the youth? Because it's the same thing that we saw happen early on in Europe. That the older Muslim community, the one that had been integrated into society, said, I'm English, or I'm French. But it's the youth that was raised here. What's happening? Where's the disconnect? What's the influence there?
The influence is basically political Islam, which is you have sermons that are not being given about the love of God and the purity of our moral code of Judeo-Christian Islamic morality, but rather they're hearing about the grievances of victimization. They're hearing about suing airlines and suing John Does. They're hearing about every plight to blame the West. And in exchange, they have nothing to offer other than hate.
Okay, Zuhdi, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Let's turn to Al-Qaeda here for a second. This is according to a British newspaper now, The Guardian. U.S. officials are now finally admitting that Iran has been secretly forging ties with Al-Qaeda, elements in the Sunni Arab militias in Iraq.